How do you get your first 100 clients? Hey there, my name is Thomas, welcome to the More Cashflow podcast, and on this episode we'll cover that super important question that applies not only to entrepreneurs that are starting out, but also to people that have already established a business that is successful, but want to launch new lines of products, new services, whatever it may be. It's always tough to get the first 100 clients. And so I decided to make this video today because I'm actually in London today, and so this is the city where we really started our international expansion. This was the first city where my company started really acquiring clients. That's really growing beyond the country I'm originally from, which obviously I'm not English, as you can probably tell by my accent, so I'm actually Portuguese originally, and still nationally I am, and so for that reason it made a lot of sense for me to do that. So we are actually recording this. I am actually recording this in an apartment I rented in London, and so this is the video that will show some of the tactics, the actual strategies that I used in my businesses, both on the business to business side and on the business to consumer side, because in the past I've actually owned physical locations for a specific vertical, which I don't want to get specifically into this video, just because it's something that we still work on and it's something I would not like to have publicly available at this point in time. But I will share the tactics that we've used both in business to business and business to consumer to get hundreds, literally thousands of customers for both for B2C. We're still in the couple hundreds, obviously, because B2B business to business, obviously we're still in the couple hundreds, because that's a market where each client is very, very juicy, as a large lifetime value, and so obviously we will not have millions of customers paying us millions of dollars a month, or at least I still don't know how to make that happen. And if you do, please drop it in the comments, because that would be some very, very valuable knowledge and skill, which Michael Bloomberg, for example, has figured out. I still haven't, so this video is not how to make 100 people pay $100 million per month. That would be cool, but I'm not the one that can do that kind of thing. But if you're in B2C, then it's pretty easy to get hundreds and thousands of clients if your product does have market fit. And so I'll also share with you some of the tactics. Although, just to be clear, I am more experienced in business to business sales. I've spent most of my career actually doing one-on-one sales meetings. So I've sold personally. I've closed $500,000 like personally handshake deals on actual like one-on-one interactions. I'm also responsible for a couple million euros / pounds / dollars in sales for my organization that has been generated over the internet through our sales processes. And so I do understand a lot about B2B sales, but I don't want to discourage you from watching this if you are in the business to consumer side of things, because there are also a lot of methods and strategies that can be applied to business to consumer, as long as your customer lifetime value, as long as the value of a customer that you have is still high enough for the numbers to make sense. But I don't want to get too technical and too detailed here, so I'll just give you a brief overview of what we'll cover in this episode. This is actually probably one of my favorite like startup actual knees deep in shit, fighting through the mud, actual boots on the ground stuff, because I'm really a tactical guy. I like getting my hands dirty when it comes to business. This sounds very weird when I say it like this and scrub my hands together, but but my point being that this is really the stuff that makes and makes businesses grow. And so if you want to talk about the wishy stuff, very cool, what the markets will do and your emotions, and let's just hang it out and stuff, that's cool, but it will not grow your business. It's actually doing the stuff, the hard work, that's going to grow your business, and this is the hard work. So what we'll cover in these small, I won't call it a presentation, but this episode here is how to acquire customers through cold calling, to one-on-one selling at customer hotspots. This is really a specifically works specifically, especially well for business to consumer. Also, how to acquire customers using direct online advertising, how to acquire customers obviously through partnerships and synergetic companies that you can ally with, and how to create a community around your customer persona. Now, just to be clear, my company has not figured out how to do each of these methods to the highest degree obviously. And so I'll talk about some of the examples of people I know that are doing these specific things very, very well and are generating amazing returns out of this kind of customer acquisition tactic. And also I'll share with you some more in-depth, some more specific stuff about the ones that we have really became experts on and really specialized in order to grow my business. And so without further ado, let's start with the main principles that you need to remember when you are trying to get your first 100 customers, your first 1000 customers, or your first whatever number is relevant to your business and would make a significant change in your day-to-day operation and profitability. So the principles that I want to share with you, and this is the only wishy-washy, touchy-feely stuff that I'm gonna be talking about here, because I'm not a mindset guy, I'm a do the work guy, but obviously it's important to actually know what we're looking for when we're doing the work. And so 4 things that I want to be very clear on are absolutely vital when we are trying to get our first customers for a new endeavor, for a new company, for a new line of product, whatever. Is first off, being ready and motivated and able to push and shove and grind and fight whatever it takes, because really, and these are almost like this is point to number 1 and number 2, because you gotta be willing to push and shove and keep grinding, even if there's no work-life balance, if there is no sign that what you're doing is working, if you seem like a complete mad person because you are doing this and pushing and shoving and cold calling and selling emails and doing advertising and spending money and trying to do partnerships and nothing works, and still you keep on pushing. That's what's required to actually make any line of product work. And I say this as someone that took a long time. I can share, I will not share very specific numbers, but I can share that my main company is doing 6 figures in revenue a year at this point, really close to 7 figures at this point. I don't really get into specifics because I'm trying to make this video as applicable for everyone as possible. And also, maybe I could be lying, maybe I'm not even in London, maybe I'm actually in South Africa, and my name maybe is not even Thomas, it might be Julian, and so maybe you're watching Julian just making stuff up. But for someone that's making stuff up, I seem at least to be quite knowledgeable on the stuff I'm making up. And so if you bear with me, I might actually be able to share some important stuff when it comes to acquiring customers, but that will only work if you are willing to do whatever it takes to get those customers on board with your products, with your company, and with your services. And so pushing and shoving is required in order to get your first significant amount of customers to your products. Now the second principle that is necessary to really grow a company, at least in my view, and it's something I've always been able and willing to do, and that's why I've succeeded in business, at least to a degree that's above average, especially in the country I came from, is to be willing to not do what makes you happy and what you're passionate about, but what it takes. And so this means that if the tactic, if the method, if what you're doing can actually work, if you just put some effort here and you tweak it and you do it even though you don't want to do it, and even though it's not fun, and even though you would rather do some cooler, sexier client acquisition method, then if you are actually willing to do whatever it takes, even though you don't want to do it, you will be able to rise above your competition, because most of them have actually seen the same thing you saw, but were not able to put in the work to get those extra clients that you are getting. And so you may end up tapping into a really unused source of ideal clients and potential clients for your company, just because you saw the same thing your competition, the people that work in your vertical, saw, but you took advantage of it and they didn't. And so that's a really important tip that I'll leave you with, which is that not only have you need to be able to do whatever it takes and push and shove, but you also need to do the mental, have the mental strength, not only to be a lot of time and a lot of hours actually like doing the work, but also having the mental fortitude to explore the options that you don't find appealing just because they have a large potential to work, because most people will not find them appealing as well. If you're going into the hot, sexy stuff that everybody wants to do, the fashion, client acquisition stuff of the moment, you'll probably not have a lot of results because everybody's doing it. If you go to the old stuff that nobody is doing and nobody wants to do because it's boring, because it takes a lot of work and it's costs money and it's not very practical and this and that, you may actually tap on a source of clients that will flood your your servicing gates and make you a lot of profit. And so that's an important tip that I'll give you. Coming to a more practical side of things and more or less psychological, blah blah blah, or whatever it takes. Which I say this in this way, but it's very important, obviously. The third thing I want to leave you with is that you should focus, and these are the 4 principles. The third one is really that you should focus on creating the relationships with new clients one at the time versus trying to get a lot of customers at the same time. And this is especially true because most people watching this, if you are working in business to consumer, or if you're thinking about starting a product or a service for business to consumer, you might be thinking, yeah, but it's not really feasible for me to go one by one to get clients. That would never work. I get you, I hear you, I understand you. Like, these are not your first 1 million clients. These are your first 100, 1,000 clients. And so this is a bit of a different story. And until you get these people interested enough and raving high enough about your brand, about your service, you will not be able to replicate the process you did and scale it with other salespeople, with other verticals, with other distributors, whatever tactic you use to get those people, if these people are not really impressed with the what you're doing. And so if you try to get a lot of customers at the same time, what's probably going to happen is that you might get like a couple customers here or there, but you won't really be building a solid base. And this is, by the way, this is very abstract, so it might not always be the case. Like, if you find a way to get the email list of somebody that has like a million ideal clients of your niche, and you just email every single one of them, I guarantee you're gonna get a lot of clients and a lot of stuff from that email. Now the question is, will that be sustainable long term? It will not. It will not, because those people come, and if the value is not there, those people go. And if you make sure you're creating relationships and adding to those relationships, and you obviously you have to automate it, because especially if you're in B2C, you can't just have 1,000 people on your contact list and you just reach out to them. Yeah, it's obviously, I'm talking about automating these relationships. But if you actually treat each relationship as a unique relationship, not only will you convert a lot more people, but more importantly, this is the golden rule of how to actually get a lot of customers, you will keep many of those customers, and so you won't have to keep always filling a bucket that's empty. If you get a lot of clients and most of those clients stay, you will get to 100, 1,000, whatever client number very fast. If every time you get 2 clients, you lose 3 clients, it doesn't take a genius to understand that you will not reach very far with those numbers. And even if every time you get 2 clients, you lose 1 client, that will still be a drag much higher than the guy that only loses 1 client per month versus for every 10 clients that he gets. I'm screwing the math a little bit, and I'm really tired because I haven't swiped yesterday. Yesterday I actually I did how do you call it? A red eye. I think it's a red eye in English that you say it. I actually did a pull down red eye, basically a night without sleep to come here on time, or else I had to lose the flight to London. And so I'm really tired, and I'm trying to make a quality video, even though I'm not really sure what I'm saying is fully coherent, but at least I'm trying my best. And so that's the third principle I think is really important to apply when it comes to acquiring customers. And finally, the last principle that I'll share with you before we dive into the meat, the nice stuff about the client acquisition, the actual tactics and the actual strategies to acquire the customers, is to make sure that the tactics, this is probably the most, I won't say the most important principle here, because they're all very important, but this one is really necessary in order to scale a business and to really go from 100 to 1,000 to 10,000 to whatever number of clients you really want to get one day. Is to make sure that the tactics you are using are as evergreen as possible, or else you'll be a hunter instead of a farmer. You'll be someone that has always a need of refilling the bucket, because the bucket is always bleeding clients, is always losing clients. And obviously, if the bucket is always losing water, no matter how fast you pour the water is just gonna keep going away faster and faster. And so the best way to make sure that your business is really sustainably growing is not only to have satisfied customers that really stay for a long time, but also to have tactics that you use for customer acquisition and strategies that are sustainable long term and that don't run out. And I'll just give you a quick example. For example, if you send an email blast is not an evergreen tactic, in the sense that if I send an email blast to everybody on my list, yes, I actually may get some clients, but can I keep doing that every day? Probably not. Can I do that every month? Probably not. And so if I can't keep doing it over and over, I'll just do it once and then it's gone. And that's not really a way to grow business. It's a way to get some quick traction, but it's not a way to get reliable amounts of customers and to get to a big number of clients. The reason I chose 100 and not 10, not 5, not whatever, is because 100 is a number where not only do you need to have some product market fit, but assuming you are in the larger business per se, assuming you consider client somebody that keeps ordering you from you, to actually get 100 people that consistently order stuff from you, you will really need to build a set of strategies and tactics that are scalable and that work continuously. Because if you don't, you'll just be trying stuff and throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And by the way, it is perfectly normal in the beginning to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, but you gotta be focused on not what gets you a couple clients in this moment, but what will get you the most clients during the next 12 months, 24 months, say 36 months, whatever. And so if you look at the tests you are doing and the stuff you are trying out in that lens, in that frame, you will probably end up trying and using tactics that will grow your business much more than if you just try to do stuff that will get you a quick couple of clients now, but will not actually build a sustainable arm, a sustainable division, a sustainable channel of client acquisition for your business. Okay, and so now that we have all the principles and all the stuff I think you should be focused on when you think about client acquisition out of the way, then let's start by diving into the actual tactics. So let's start by cold calling, and I'll cover some of the upsides and the downsides. So cold calling is actually how I started getting most of my contracts in the early beginning of my career. Cold calling is brutal. It is also free. It is also effective. It is also really hurtful. I think cold calling is something that should really be obliged. To be honest, this is just one of my opinions that most people would not like, because most people do not want to put in the work. But to be honest, I think everybody, and I really mean everybody, like from the garbage collector to the professor that think he's too good to learn anything from actual entrepreneurs that actually do the work, from anyone to everyone, I think that all people should have at least a couple weeks or a couple sessions of cold calling in their career, so they really know what it is to try to understand, persuade, and connect with people in sales and in a one-on-one kind of environment, which is something most people lack a lot of understanding on, and it will also make you more understanding and not only grateful but better at handling leads that have a level of interest at your product. Because if you understand cold calling and if you get good at cold calling, you will be able to transform people that have basically no interest or are not even aware of your solution into people that are actually motivated and interested in moving forward in a relationship with you. And so when you do that bridge that gap, when you bridge that gap, what will happen is that you will not only get some clients, because that's obviously what we're talking about here when we're talking about tactics, but you will also become a better person. This sounds very touchy-feely, to be honest, but actually I see cold calling, that's the reason I put it on top of my list, as more of a rite of passage, as more of a something that every entrepreneur should do, and I really mean every entrepreneur should do a lot of cold calling and get it working before moving on to other tactics, just because you learn so much about just human psychology and how to actually process, how do clients actually process data, and how to actually develop a relationship with a client, that when you go implement whatever other tactics that get you referrals or that get you leads in a warmer way, you will be able to both respect and work these leads much better than if you had not been able to crack cold calling. So cold calling is a really time-consuming but effective way of getting clients. When I say time-consuming, it's because in my experience at least, and I've seen other people saying the opposite. I've seen people saying that they do 200 calls a day to different people and they convert X and 3% move forward and stuff. That's good. I do not disagree or say that's not possible. I've seen it being done, and so I know it is possible. That's not the way I did it, because I work in B2C, the B2B, the business to business service delivery. The way I got many of my first clients was just to literally keep calling the CEO of the company, getting his email, getting his address, getting him gifts, calling him, knocking on his door, making him remember me, obviously very strategically, not just spamming the person, but understanding like what struggles they're going through right now, and just calling and sending personalized stuff to that specific situation, like really vertical stuff to get the client. And obviously this will be a long video, but if I was to really dive deep into each one of these tactics, it would be a 10-hour training video and not really a 1-hour video, which is already very long. And so I will not go specifically into scripts and details and stuff, but just to be very clear, cold calling is really about getting the attention of the person, making sure he understands he has a problem that we can solve, making sure he believes we can solve that problem, and getting him to commit to giving us a little bit of time, a meeting, a Zoom call, whatever, for us to actually present the solution. And if we are able to do that, then we have just created a free client acquisition method. And now the question is, how much money does one of these clients generate? And if the answer is more than it takes to pay a salesperson to actually do these calls for you, then you've just created your first evergreen client acquisition method. Now that's actually the tricky part, because when you are doing this stuff alone, it's actually very easy to get a positive cash flow on this investment or on doing the cold calls, because you are basically doing them for free. You don't really have any cost. I mean, it's not like the phone calls, and the phone costs you anything or significant really. But if you actually hire someone and you're paying him $2,000, $3,000 a month, and the guy is only bringing you $4,000 a month in contracts, and your cost to fulfill those contracts are actually, let's say, 2,000 euros, then, or dollars, or whatever currency you want to use, actually you're losing money now. And so that's why it's so important to understand that the numbers and have a lifetime value and the customer satisfaction high enough so that the numbers actually make sense when you try to delegate it. Because if it's not, it is not evergreen. I mean, it might be evergreen in the sense that you, the owner of the company and the product, can keep on doing it. And if you keep on doing it, obviously it will keep working forever, as long as you are actually tapping on the source of leads that keeps replenishing itself. But you will not be able to remove yourself out of the equation if the numbers are not good enough to actually insert a salesperson. And so that's the real struggle with cold calling. And by the way, that's actually not our main source of customer acquisition. It used to be back when I started off many years ago. We're talking about like 5-6 years ago. And I still do cold calling, by the way. I still do cold calling. Most of my team still has to do cold calling, mandatory. It's not really for, I don't want to say it's not really for the return, but it's not only for the return. It's mainly because I want our team to be as tough as me, and I want to make sure that I myself do not lose the tenacity and the grit necessary to close big deals even when the leads are warmer. And so that's the way we process stuff here, and I really advise you to do the same. But as I said before, this is one method that works. There are many that work. I think this one is one that you should really try to make work at your company before moving forward, just because it will help you build that resilience and that capacity of selling that no other method really pushes you hard enough and deep enough to really, at least it takes longer to have the kind of effects as it does on the cold calling side. But with that said, that's only one method, and there's a lot of other methods that work. But I really advise you, especially if you are on working with other companies, so if you're on B2B, business to business, I really advise you to make cold calling work for your company before moving forward, even if it's just profitable enough for you to be the one doing it. Because once you crack that code, you know you can really improve the conversions and the efficacy of whatever other client acquisition methods and tactics you actually implement. And also, let's move on to the next one. So the next one, I won't give too deep on it, just because as you probably understood, my forte comes in the form of business to business sales and not really business to consumer sales. And so when we're talking about business to consumer sales, I think one of the most powerful ways to get a lot of clients, and I've done this myself, that's why I'm saying it. I know it's powerful because we did it on one of our brick and mortar businesses, and it's a way that has been tried and tested and proven for hundreds of years, maybe even thousands of years really, which is that you have to identify who is your ideal client, understand where he hangs out, and just go there and present your solution. It sounds so stupidly simple that it seems hard to believe, but that's really one of the most effective ways to get clients. Now, let me just say this in another way, just so that it doesn't seem so abstract. So let's say, for example, you sell, I don't know, something that's B2B. You sell video games. Easy one. So you sell video games. Where are the customer hotspots of your industry? Very simple. So if you sell video games, then video game conventions are a great way for you to be surrounded by your potential customers. Also, other places that you really have an hotspot. I'm obviously more used to doing this in person, so I'm talking about events and stuff. But like, if you go to a forum where there's a lot of gamers and you sell video games, then that's a place where you can keep pushing your stuff. Now you just gotta make sure that you're pushing it in a way that you are actually getting attention and not just spamming people. And that's why I still to this day prefer to have most of interactions online, in person, even if it's through a Zoom call, versus just purely online on chats or messages or stuff. But with that said, that's just one example. Let's say you sell fishing equipment for human beings that like to fish. Then what would be your customer hotspot? Very simple. It's going to be the shore of your city. So if your city has a shore, then you just go there and you tell the guys that are fishing, hey guys, I got better fishing equipment than you are using right now. And assuming the guys acknowledge that that's a need. Obviously you wouldn't work it like that, especially because that's usually a older demographic. But as long as you find a way to get their attention and you share the product and you keep finding hotspots, pockets like that have recurring people coming to them, because in this case fishing, like people will come every weekend. So every weekend you can just show up there, and as long as you're engaging and entertaining, like people will actually put up with you and maybe even buy your stuff and start doing business with your company. If you are able to keep on doing that, then you've just built a evergreen customer acquisition strategy, tactic, and so system, process, channel, whatever you want to call it. And so that's a really great way to push and to promote and to sell business to consumer products. And so you just see and identify who your ideal client is, and obviously don't be too picky. Don't say it's a 22-year-old woman that has pink hair and stuff. Like I'm talking like be broader, but just say like if you sell fishing equipment, as I said, just people that like fishing. Okay, that's it. Or ideal customer, and then where are those people? And that's it. All right, and then we move on to a really cool, and I call it the next natural step, the next natural evolution to cold calling and to one-on-one selling to customer hotspots and stuff, which is direct online advertising. And so this is the method that currently my company relies most heavily on. It's also the most expensive one. So this is actually, I think after this, there are actually other ways that you can grow your company. I don't want to say more effectively, but maybe there is really more effectively. But one that really has served me well, and my company as well, is paid direct online advertising. And I said direct online advertising, not necessarily paid, because I want to make clear that, for example, SEO, for actually growing a website and getting a real strong presence on the internet, is actually a very, very effective way of growing a business as well. And it's evergreen way as well, as long as people will keep searching for the problem which your company has a solution for, you will keep getting customers there and the leads there. And so that's a way that works very well. Now, obviously, this is also usually the most expensive way, because you are paying to get eyeballs to your product. And the reason why this is not the first one I cover is not because it doesn't work very well. It is, obviously it does work very well, as long as you know what you're doing. It's especially because of that last sentence that I just said, because you gotta know very well what you're doing. Because if you're doing cold calls, if nothing happens, then nothing happened. But if you're investing $10,000 a month on advertising and nothing happens, then you lose $10,000. And if you do that for a year, that's $120K. And so you really gotta understand your numbers, your margins, how much a customer is worth, all that stuff. But once you do, it's really just a question of taking it to as high as you can go, so that you can keep scaling your company and getting more customers. But in terms of the first 100 customers, I'll just tell you that it is better to grow to to the first few customers to organic methods, just because you're gonna screw up on a lot of stuff along the journey. But once you start getting to that critical mass that you're, for example, doing business intelligence for larger companies, and you already have 20 clients and you're already making $50,000 a month, then it's maybe time to up the ante and start promoting to people on LinkedIn, to people on even Facebook, to people on the web, building a really strong presence on your website, whatever, and just start pouring some real money into that. And that's a strategy that will obviously require a little bit more of organization and expertise than the other ones, at least to make sure that you will not have a negative ROI, which is something you cannot have, obviously. And if you do everything right, this will probably become, after the first organic methods, this will probably become your first really profitable, really strong arm of your company, just because of the nature of these platforms. These platforms are very motivated to make sure that you keep coming back, because obviously they depend on your revenue to survive. And so it's not only you that want to spend there, it's them that also want to make sure that the eyeballs you are buying are still there. And so you have a really strong incentive here on both sides to make sure this channel is working properly. And then you have other channels. Now I'll start covering the other ones a bit faster, just because these are not my expertise, but I've seen people in my industry and people outside my industry working very, very well and very, very profitable with these tactics. And one of them is partnerships. So partnerships with synergetic companies is something I've seen people do and really grow exponentially, just because they found a way to insert themselves in the process of onboarding or the relationship of another person that works in their niche. And I'll give you an example. So there's a guy I know that actually worked with restaurants, and so he made a friend through an organization I was actually part of for several years called BNI, which was a guy that used to have a cleaning company that specialized on restaurants. And so what ended up happening is this dude worked with restaurants, the other dude worked with restaurants, and so they both inserted themselves in the process. And so I'll give you an example just to show how easy this can be done. So for example, my bank, we have a bank in Portugal called Millennium, and Millennium actually gives they call it the applause customers, the wealthier customers. Not sure I want to call myself a wealthy customer, just because that sounds kind of braggy, but the nicer customers they have, pretty much. They give them a set of special offers and discounts, like for example, like free business cards, free consulting for this and that company, blah 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 blah. And so it's a list of free stuff and heavily discounted stuff that you can get because you are a nicer customer. Now this is exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about synergetic partnerships. So they probably have a kickback or a similar referral strategy with the other company, and so when one does well, the other one does well as well. And so they both work with similar customers, and for that reason, whenever one gets a customer, he also tries to push in a non-evasive way and not bothering way, a really helpful and value-add way, the other partner, and the other partner does the same thing whenever he gets a customer. So that's a way to really level up together with other companies. Now I gotta be honest here, I've actually tried to do this with other companies in my vertical in the past, and I ended up one of them, this is something I don't, I do have a company in the medical field. It's a very physical company. It's a very cool brand in Portugal only. This company, sadly, because of his physical restraints, right now only operates in Portugal, but it's a division I founded because I ended up investing in a partner that I was trying to do this kind of stuff with, just because I saw that the partnership would not work unless I was involved in a larger degree of control in the company. And so I've been unable to do this kind of partnership with somebody in my industry that really wants to push things to the next level in his company as well, and is working a similar vertical as me. I've had meetings in the past where we talked, and it's all very pretty when you say you'll do this and that and we'll talk about it, but in the end sometimes people are afraid, both you as the owner of your current customer list and the other guy, to actually start referring each other and really getting knees deep into the client lists of each other. And so that's something that I believe it will have to be implemented in my companies eventually in a larger way with more serious partners. I still have not been able to do it as well as I would like, but I've seen people very successfully do this. Some of the biggest industry players in the online stuff, and even the banks, really, I just give you a bank example, do this, and they do this very successfully. So it is really an evergreen strategy to acquire customers, and I really recommend you thinking about when you're trying to really scale your customer acquisition and get a lot of clients. And for a long time, and for consistently, which is really the keyword here. And the last tip that I'll give you that I believe is evergreen, and then I'll just give you a quick other ways, but that are not so sustainable in the long run, is actually creating a community around your customer persona. And so this is, for example, having groups, having Facebook groups. There's a very specific on the ground one. There you can also do industry events, so you can become the authority in your industry and just start doing industry events. You can do teaching, like you can actually do webinars and do useful content for your persona. You can bring it all under one umbrella and just do a website where you guys teach stuff, and you have also a Facebook group, and you also have webinars going on LinkedIn, and go to webinar and whatever, blah, and you just create this big bubble of really a community. And so you create a community without just being a salesy community. So you're not there to sell, you're there to empower them and bring them together and teach them and all that good stuff. And then once they're there, you just start slowly, but mostly focused on still adding value. And obviously your main focus there is to add value and to make sure they're getting value from each other and from the community. And then from time to time, you introduce your also paid value adding, paid value add services and products that you may have to that specific industry. And so that's something, once again, I have not been able to crack, just because we do not have the resources and the brain power in my company right now to do all this stuff at the same time, because it's really about honing in your specific customer acquisition channels and just making sure you cap them out before you cap them out, like reach as high as you can on them before you start doing a lot of stuff, or you'll end up doing a lot of stuff and not doing any of the things well. And so I've seen a specific company in my field in the US do this to a ridiculous level. They went from making a couple tens of $1,000s a year to really truly making low millions of dollars a year, which is amazing. I won't get too specific in that because some people may actually know me, and I don't wanna I don't want it to be understandable who I'm specifically talking about here, but it is a very effective way of getting customers for the long run. It's actually very inexpensive, something I have been trying to get someone to actually work in my company to do this kind of stuff internally for our brand and for our stuff and for my main division, my main company right now. But it's something I still haven't been able to make it work myself, but I've seen it work to such a ridiculously or high degree that it's my last evergreen one, because this might be one of the most powerful waves I've come across of actually getting clients for the long run in a sustainable fashion. So creating a community around your customer persona is definitely a great way of getting your first 100 clients, your first 1,000, maybe even more than that, even if you're working B2B. But don't quote me on that, because I still haven't done it, but I believe that specific strategy will be part of our customer acquisition strategies very soon. And so now that we've talked about the ones that are sustainable, let's talk about the ones that are not sustainable. So some that are not sustainable are, for example, referral groups. And so when I say sustainable, I mean this is stuff that works very well to get your first few clients, but then it stops working as well, just because you obviously don't have those many you cannot keep doing this forever, basically. You can't really scale it out. So referral groups, referrals from your power base are something that is amazing. It's really useful to start your business and get a business off the ground, but obviously it has a finite lifespan. And so if you tell everybody in your family and everybody you know and every family dinner and every time you with your family for the next 6 months about the business you built, the opportunity you have for whichever customer you are solving a problem for, then those people will, if they are really good friends of yours, if they are real friends, and if they are real people that care about you, they'll at least try to help you scaling that operation and help you acquire more customers. And so those are a channel, that one is a channel that works, but I'm not sure you will be able to do that for the long run, just because if Johnny over there referred you to his mother, and then referred you to his sister, and then referred you to his cousin, I mean, eventually he's gonna run out of people. And if you join a networking group, the issue with that is not only that eventually a similar thing might start happening in terms of the referral you joined. Let's say you work with fishing people, just to keep on hammering that example. If you're working fishing people and you join a group of people that work with other fishermen and other like fishing aficionados or whatever, you will start slowly but surely getting to a camp. I'm not gonna say that you will not start getting new referrals from that group, but it will get to a point where that doesn't really grow anymore, and if you're not there, you're not getting referrals. And so you can't really replace yourself in that case, just because you are obviously if you're getting the referrals because it's a relationship, then if you hire a salesperson to do the relationship with your friends, it doesn't really work out, because they're not your salesperson's friends, they're your friends. Does that make sense? And so for that reason, it's not really scalable, but it's a great way to get your first few customers. Another one is to do well-planned cold outreach to a list of your ideal clients. And so this one is very simple. It's just you compile a list of your ideal clients, and then you just explain how you may help them, and ideally in a very deep way, where you just explain very well what you get their attention, you help them to identify that they have this problem that's costing them money, and you show proof that you can actually help them solve it, and then you try to push for a meeting. So you can do this. I'm not going to say specifically where you can do this. You can do this on LinkedIn, and I'm not going to say specifically because it works in many channels, and I've made it work on my company. We've done some blasts in different channels, and it works very well on LinkedIn. It works on email. It works on, I mean, it can even work in person if you can get some way of just, when I say in person, I mean physically. I've literally done this, where you just like get a lot of envelopes and letters, and just like personalize a little bit the letters and just send a blast of letters. So this is the kind of stuff that is really called the guerrilla marketing, and it's not scalable, but it does work, and it is great to get the first few customers and to get the ball rolling, because the costs to do this kind of stuff are very low. But once again, this will not be your long-term strategy. This will be just a few first customers strategy, which if you're watching this video, maybe what you're looking for, and in that case, great. That's a great way to get started. The other one, finally, and this is my last tactic when it comes to client acquisition, is to get your clients. This is probably the best one, by the way. It's just not scalable, but it's amazing, and it's going to compound everything else that you do. Is get your clients experiences and incentives so amazing that they feel absolutely compelled to refer you. And so this basically means that if the client you have has a great experience and has an incentive that's a real incentive for him to actually refer you people, he will start referring you people, and for every client you get half a client as well. And so when you start doing that, and for every client you get another additional client, this will compound all of your efforts. Is it something that if you just do this, your company will keep growing and 10xing every 5 years? It will not. Probably not. Maybe it's actually possible, but it will be very, very hard. At least I myself, I have not been able to crack that, because obviously it is very hard to keep continuously improving the value you give to your clients and the incentives you get them to refer more people. But obviously that's also the name of the game, and that's why business is tough, is because you gotta keep constantly iterating and improving the value you add to your customers, so that they can spend more with you and be more motivated to refer people to you, just because they are getting such an awesome experience. And so that's not a client acquisition method per se, especially not a scalable one, but it's definitely something that will compound all the other ones that we've talked about. And now finally, that I've covered each of the ways that I recommend you go about getting your first 100 customers, whichever number you find significant at this point to your company, let me just touch on 3 very important things, and these are our last 3 points for this video, which are about strategy. So we've talked about the tactics, we've talked about the principles and the way you should approach these kind of tactics, and now let's talk about the strategy. So strategy, first thing, it's really important to make sure that you are producing much more money with each of these tactics than it is costing you to acquire the customer. Because if you want to scale these tactics and if you want to grow your company, you need to make sure that for every dollar you put into cold calling, into your team doing live presentations and workshops and stuff, on ads, on partnerships, on whatever, you are getting a significantly higher return, just because if you don't, you will end up doing the work yourself. Second, keep scaling each acquisition channel until capacity, and only then add more. Don't try to have a lot of acquisition channels that can work. Instead, focus on having a client acquisition channel maxed out to the maximum of your ability, and only then, when you're very close to doing it, should you now start developing and investing on another strong acquisition channel to add to your company. And finally, always focus on how you can multiply customers and not add them. How can we add zero? That's the key question. That's the best way to grow a company, because if you always focus on how you can multiply customers and not add them, you will find the best way to grow that specific company, because there is no tutorial or guide that can tell you specifically what is the best possible way to grow exponentially your specific company. But as long as you think in terms of adding zeros and not just growing linearly, you'll be looking for channels that can significantly improve your business instead of just slightly growing it. And that's the way you really grow consistently a very solid revenue with solid profit in a short amount of time. And if those opinions that I've just shared with you are valuable to you, because these are the tips. This, by the way, this is what I'm showing with you. These are what I'm sharing with you today. This is what I used in my own companies to generate an income that's really been really nice for me, for the people that I care about, can afford me an apartment in London, can afford me very nice things. And I'm not saying this to brag, I'm saying this because those strategies that I've showed you are very simple. This is not rocket science. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm a very simple guy, as you can probably tell by the way I speak and by the way I joke. And so if this works for me, it can work for you. I'm not a multi-millionaire, but I've done very well for myself. Every year I do have a lot of money coming in, not the millions, but in the hundreds of thousands. And I'm not saying this to brag once again. It's just to show you that it is definitely possible. Whatever stage in life you are right now, if you just put in the work and do whatever it takes to make it out and to make it succeed. And so if for that reason, if you start applying these principles, I believe and I hope they work for your company as well as they worked for mine. They will probably, because as much as we like to think that we are all different and not all companies are different, we are much more similar than we'd like. And obviously, as I said, the specifics of how you can really maximize the growth of your company is something that you will have to conclude on your own, because there is no guide, no trick, magical trick that works for everybody. But the principles that work for most companies will most likely work for yours as well. And the same applies to the growth levers and the principles and the tactics and the actual strategy I shared with you here today. And so if you find this content helpful and if you like this video, I'm gonna ask you to please subscribe to the channel, to like the video if you like it, and until next time, I wish you a great week and great business.